Welcome back, guys. This is going to be episode 8. We got the motor back, all the powder coat parts that we need to assemble it. So we're going to kind of work our way from the front to the back and show you guys how to put it together and what parts we got. So I'll bring you guys closer because the first part that we're going to do is starting with the clutch. So we have a TRS transmission kit. Here, TRS transmission kit. So you have to take apart the clutch, and we're going to show you guys how to do that.
Okay, so now to get the clutch nut off on this, it's a 1.5 inch socket, pretty big. What we like to do is mark the nut. I have 2 stripes here, 1 stripe here, so when we're tightening it back up, we know where we're at to the factory settings. We're going to go ahead and just put my feet on this like that. Get it on and there you go. So now that it's off, we're going to take this top that was in this spring here, the factory one, put it in the 1500 spring, and then the RDR clutch has a specific design that will line up on the clutch here. So once you line that up, it's going to look like that. Now it's easier when you're sitting down and using your feet to keep pressure on it. I will say that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my feet on now, hit it with the impact, line up the bolts, and then we'll be good to go. There you go. So I got the marks lined up, and it's good to go. We now have the RDR clutch with the 1500 spring on it, and we're all set to put that on the motor.
All right, so now that the clutch is done, we're going to go ahead and move on to the all-in-one intake. So to do that, you're going to have to remove the factory studs on here. We're going to bring you guys closer and show you how that's done, because you can use the factory nuts or just any M6 nut. You'll double nut it, and then that's how we're going to get it out. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so what you're going to go ahead and do is take 2 M6 nuts, thread that first one all the way down, put the next one on top of it, and then you're going to tighten them together to make them as tight as you can. And after they're tightened together, you'll loosen this bottom one, and that's going to pull that nut out. And just like that, studs out, and you're going to go ahead and repeat that on the other side. And just like that, both studs are removed, and you can also take this little plastic piece off because you won't be needing it. All right, so continuing on with the all-in-one, you're going to want to put the plastics back on. Pretty easy to do.
It's easier to line it up on that and drop it in.
No, it's not. You'll take your bolt. It's 8 mil. Be very easy on these ones. If you hit it with an impact too hard, it's going to pull the threads right out. So you can either use a screwdriver because it has a threaded, or just very, very lightly do it with the impact and you'll be okay. Just like that, your plastics are done. We're gonna go ahead and leave this main fan one off for now, because when you do the fan cover, we're gonna have to Dremel all this out and cut it, so we'll just leave that off for now. All right, so the first step to putting on your clocking flange is you're gonna take black RTV, put a little bit on your finger, and then you're gonna go around and tap, and that's gonna create an equal amount around that border there. So it's gonna be the first thing you do. Any pinch point, you're gonna use that black RTV, because that's gonna be your gasket maker. Once your black RTV is on, you'll take your gasket, line it up with the holes, which might be kind of hard to do. Just like that. You're going to flip your all-in-one over, and you're going to do the same thing with the black RTV again. You're going to go around this ring and dab it along. This thing's like pouring out the top.
You can see if any residual gets in there, he's just sweeping it out while it's still soft and pliable.
Now your black RTV is on. You can go ahead and put this back on. You're going to take the bolts. Of course, red Loctite. Just a little bit on there. Same with the other one. Drop the bolts down. Just thread them in by hand to start. You want to make sure you get that aligned so it don't move. Once that drops in. And you're basically going to repeat that same process with the other manifold. You're going to do RTV, gasket, RTV, put it on. All right, so we're going to kind of do this a different way. You're going to start with this one, the manifold on the top. RTV first. This is still just going everywhere. What's going on here? But he's going crazy. And you're going to follow that same process again of dabbing your finger around the side.
So some of you might be saying like, well, it already has an O-ring, why are you putting the ultra black? We don't want any room for error. O-rings are great, but they tend to warp after heat. They tend to do the same thing if gas was to get them, if the bolt backed out. So that's why, one reason why we're using Loctite. Two, it doesn't hurt to have extra added measure of security, I guess you could say, or comfort by putting another gasket on as well. So Dakota's putting the other gasket on, then he'll align the top of that with another thin dab of the ultra black, and then it's going to bolt to the top of the all-in-one clocking flange. The reason why he's not putting it on the flange is it's a bigger surface here. If you were to just do it all the way around, you would actually realize that you are covering a lot of area that doesn't need to be covered. When you put it directly onto the gasket there, it's only going to cover the part of the clocking flange that it needs to cover. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of Loctite on here. Got on both bolts now. And drop that in. It may push the gasket. And then we will line it up on the caulking flange.
Fingers are all slippery.
There you have it. The intake manifold is now on top of the caulking flange. Both powdered gloss black look really good. We have the rubber coupler that we can go ahead and push on here. And it has a little ring on it, so it'll bead up once you, or like kind of lock in once you get it on there. I like to face the hose clamps the same way because I have OCD. So we'll leave that like that, and then technically we can just kind of plug this in the meantime so nothing gets in before we do the whole carburetor install.
All right, so the next part we're going to be starting on the CVT side. First things first is we're going to put the backing plate to the CVT cover on. So there's going to be 6 smaller bolts in the package that you get from the TRS CVT cover. You're going to Loctite all of them, of course. Just put a little dot on all the bolts. You'll take your backing plate. It has like a little cup thing here. That's going to go towards the back. So have something similar to this. And you can put one bolt in and it'll kind of hold itself up while you continue doing the rest. You want to keep them kind of loose while you're doing them because it'll kind of shift a little bit when the bolts are going in. You're going to make sure all the bolts line up.
And then you can go back through afterwards and get them tight. Now the powder coat ones, you don't want to go too tight where you're going to crack the powder. And once you crack powder, then it's just going to kind of spread. You got to remember, if you put the Loctite on there, it's going to hold up.
Now that your back plate is on, you can go ahead and put your variator on.
You want to pinch the back of it so that you don't.
This will slide out. So if you hold this, it's not going to move at all. You can just slide it straight in without everything falling apart.
And then that variator boss will kind of lock it in place. Smooth.
Then you'll take your clutch. Back. You'll have your belt. You can go ahead and actually probably just set it here for now. You'll take your drive face. We did powder coat black on ours. There's little grooves right here. There's grooves inside of the drive face. You just kind of line them up.
And this drive face right here for this bike is the NCY drive face. It's usually their Teflon coated one, I think you would call it. But we sandblasted it and then powder coated it black. So now Dakota's putting the belt on the front port there for the crankshaft. And when we do it, you can see how he's pinching it in the back there. That's going to create space and flex and allow that belt to get on there. This belt is a little tight because it's brand new. I mean, there's 0 miles on this bike. And then you have the dry face, and then there's the washer and the nut. We always put Loctite on these because if you have a GY6, you'll know that if you don't and you didn't put it tight enough, you're going to lose that nut, and that dry face is going to pass you on the road somewhere. So I've learned from experience when I first started getting to the GY world. So he's putting that on there. Right now he's just putting on hand tight, making sure that it's threaded on so you don't cross thread it. Trying to send it with an impact. And one thing that will help too is when you are tightening up the dry face portion, if you pinch the belt still, it will allow it. Because right now that dry face isn't sitting necessarily perfectly flat because it's got a pinch from the belt itself. So I'll go in there, help him out, and then we'll hit it with the impact, and then we'll show you what it looks like when that's all done, and then he's finishing off the ankle biter.
All right, so now that everything here is tightened up, we're going to go ahead and put on the front to our CVT. you're going to have two longer bolts, a medium bolt, and a short bolt. So we're going to start with the two longer ones in the back. You have a spacer. You're going to put that on. So I'm going to kind of get this stuff out of my way. I'm just going to hand thread that in. So now we'll go ahead and undo another one on this side so it's not so flimsy. So there's a shorter one and a little bit taller one. The shorter one is going to go on the top. The longer one is going to go on the bottom. You can do the same thing, put the spacer.
If you're a nerd like me, the top one is M6 by 60 millimeters, and the bottom one is 65 millimeters, so it's just a little bit longer.
Now that everything's on, you'll go back through and you're going to tighten everything. You don't forget the backs, and you're just going to go through and I do kind of like a star pattern, so everything tightens evenly. So when you're tightening this top, you'll kind of come to find out that this is very tight on this corner here. Little trick so you don't scrape up your CVT is just put blue masking tape. You just set it right on that edge. And now you won't have to worry about your ratchet hitting this and scraping it up, and you'll be able to go through and tighten them.
So there you have it. There's the GY6 ankle biter in gloss black, as well as the gloss black NCY dry face, the OKO variator, RDR clutch with RDR vented clutch bell, the Gates Powerlink belt. Everything gloss black, looks super good. Intake manifold, clocking flange. So right now for this side of the motor, it's basically done. We do have a gloss black starter cover that will cover this whole area here, but we're not going to put that on until after we do the wire harness. So what we'll do is we'll flip the motor 180 around, and then we're going to put the black drum hub on, and then get the plastic get the plastic fan cover set up for the TRS cover.
All right, so now we're going to assemble the brakes. You'll have a little pin. Here's your, slide that right through.
Now you're not going to have to do this if you just buy a motor how it is. This is already done. But because we took it all apart to paint it wrinkle black, that's the reason behind why we took all these parts out. So you can see Dakota's done this part quite a few times.
Too many times.
Any of the 11-pole motors that you get from us, this man has touched. Then we have the GY6 hub. We have this in black and silver options on the website. I'm just going to go ahead and slide that on. And then once that's on, we'll put the axle nut on. A little bit of Loctite just to make sure that doesn't go anywhere. Our hubcap kind of covers that, so per se, if the nut was to get loose on you, it would get held up in the hubcap itself. The nut is what size is that, Dakota?
21.
21 mil. You can go ahead and hit that with stick glue. Yeah. Spins freely, it's not rubbing the case. You're good to go. So now that's done, what we got next?
So next we're going to be doing the fan, and we're actually going to take this over to the other shop because we don't want to have to dirty up this one. And we're going to show you guys how you have to cut this lip out and cut the insides out to then put this on. So we're going to take it over to the other shop and kind of show you guys a more in-depth so you can kind of see what we're talking about.
All right, so next up we're going to be trimming this fan shroud. A lot of the fan shrouds have like this little lip on it now, which essentially I think was to protect it from rocks or whatnot getting in. We're going to remove that so we can put the cover. We're also going to remove all of this to put the TRS cover. Easiest way to do this is a Dremel. I've seen some people use like a hot knife, but we're going to go ahead and use a Dremel. Cut this lip off first. Then we're going to snip all these little posts, go in with the sanding bit, sand it up, clean it up, and then mount that other piece on there. There you go. That's off. You're going to get a bunch of the little hang-ups, but that's fine because you can go through and grind those off. So I'm going to go ahead and peel these off. I'll get a set of snips, and I'm going to actually snip the inside of these. It's going to be a little bit easier than trying to go through with the Dremel. And then I'll switch the Dremel to the sanding bit and just knock these little plastic burrs off to clean it up. But not that hard. Something everyone's pretty capable of doing. I've seen some people do it with a razor blade, but that had to take forever. So now we have some snips here. We're going to go through and just trim each one of these. Now some of you like to leave this part on, you can. We like to open it up. I think it's a better look. There we go. That's done. Out. This is what you're left with. You can see there's some little burrs you got up on there, so we're going to go ahead and knock those down with the Dremel. Alright, so now it's cleaned up a little bit more. I'm going to go through it with just a razor blade to knock off any of the little burrs that have hung on there. And then we'll go ahead and mount the cover on there. Okay, so there you have it. It's opened up, cleaned up nice. I'm going to go ahead and line this up and then put the self-tappers in there. So with this, it's going to kind of catch the edge of the shroud. So it might look like it's hanging off a little bit, but those self-tappers are still going to dig in and catch. So I'm going to line this up so that we're straight. And then actually, a little trick I have is I'm going to get a drill and tap 3 holes where this is lined up right now, to make it easier for the self-tappers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill this first hole in. And then I'll put the screw in, line this all up, and then do each one at a time. Now for the last one. There you have it. The TRS fan cover is now on. We're going to go back to the other shop and then mount this up to the motor and end off the video.
Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this video. We went ahead and got the fan cover back onto the motor. So now the motor is nice and complete. There's a lot of information in this video. I know a lot of people are building their bikes on their own time. They don't want to take it to a shop because things get pretty expensive. So there's a lot of good information in here, such as how to install the clocking flange, the CVT, stuff like that. So we hope you guys really do enjoy this video. Next video, we're going to be installing the stretch kit onto the frame and putting the motor with it. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. We hope you guys are enjoying it.